Right. I hope you can hear me better. You can see I'm wearing a microphone this time. And I want to read to you this article about the 6 kingdoms of living things, and this should feel like review to you. And at the end of my reading, I'm going to tell you about today's assignment. So we're reading here that there are 6 kingdoms of living things. When Linnaeus developed his system of classification, there were only 2 kingdoms, plants and animals. But the use of the microscope led to the discovery of new organisms and the identification of differences in cells. A 2-kingdom system was no longer useful. Now, what you want to understand here is that this first part, it's just an introduction. So we're not too worried about that. Okay, we're going to go on and read about the 6 kingdoms themselves. Today, the system of classification includes 6, see if we can get them, 6 kingdoms, and there they are. The 6 kingdoms are plants, animals, protists, fungi, archaebacteria, and eubacteria. How are the organisms placed into their kingdoms? Well, they're placed by what kind of cell they are, whether or not they are complex or simple. They're organized by their ability to make food and by the number of cells in their body. So the first kingdom is one that we know quite a lot about, and that is the plant kingdom. You're probably familiar with the members of this kingdom, as it contains all the plants that you have come to know: flowering plants, mosses, and ferns. Plants are all multicellular. That means that they are made of more than one cell, and they consist of complex cells. With over 250,000 species, the plant kingdom is the second largest kingdom. Plant species, in addition, are called autotrophs. Now, when you see this little comma right here, it tells you that even though that's a word you're not familiar with, that the meaning is going to be right next door, right after the comma. So autotrophs are organisms that can make their own food. So when we hear autotrophs, we want to think about able to make their own food. Without plants, life on Earth would not exist. Plants feed almost all the heterotrophs. So we need to figure out then what this word means. And I'll give you a hint. If autotrophs make their own food, you can probably guess how heterotrophs get their food. Heterotrophs are organisms that eat other organisms on Earth. So the next kingdom is the animal kingdom. Obviously, you know a lot about this. Over 1 million known species. All the animals consist of many complex cells, and they're also called heterotrophs, and there's that word again. And we read up here what a heterotroph is. Heterotrophs are organisms that eat other organisms. And members of the animal kingdom are found in the most diverse environments of the world. Alright, so much for plants and animals. We know a lot about those. Now let's get into the interesting stuff. Okay, the next kingdom is called the archaebacteria. In 1983, scientists took samples from a spot deep in the Pacific Ocean where hot gases and molten rock boiled into the ocean from the Earth's interior. To their surprise, they discovered unicellular. Now there's a word, and when you see parentheses next door to a new word, that means it's the meaning. So unicellular, or one-celled organisms in their samples. These organisms are today classified in the kingdom Archaebacteria. Archaebacteria, these guys are really cool. Archaebacteria are found in extreme environments, such as hot, boiling water. They're found in thermal vents underneath the ocean, and under conditions where no oxygen or where there's highly acidic, a lot of acid in the environment. And in Yellowstone, which by the way is my favorite national park, the hot springs there in Yellowstone National Park were among the first places where archaebacteria were discovered. And the biologists pictured in that up above, they're immersing or they're dipping microscope slides into the boiling pool, and then some of the archaebacteria can be captured for studying. Okay, archaebacteria. The next kingdom is eubacteria, and as I've told you before, when I think of this kingdom, when I think of bacteria, I go, ew. So it's the eubacteria. Yes, that was my dog barking. Like archaebacteria, eubacteria are complex and they're single-celled. Most bacteria in the eubacteria kingdom, they are the kinds found everywhere, and the ones that people are most familiar with. So what's important to know about eubacteria is they can be found everywhere. Eubacteria are classified in their own kingdom because their chemical makeup is different. And even though we go, ew, when we think about bacteria, most eubacteria are helpful. They produce vitamins and foods like yogurt. They're used to produce things like cheese. However, eubacteria can also give you diseases like strep throat, and that would be a picture of what the streptococci bacteria look like. Those are the ones that can give you strep throat. By the way, COVID-19 is not caused by a bacteria. It's caused by a virus, which is something different. Okay, the next kingdom is the fungi, or the fungi kingdom. Either way is correct to say. This kingdom includes mushrooms, mold, and mildew. Those are all examples of organisms in the kingdom of fungi. Most are multicellular, okay, and consist of many complex cells. So if you're interested in what that word multicellular means, it tells you right there, many complex cells. And you see some mushrooms there. Fungi are organisms that biologists once confused with plants. However, unlike plants, fungi cannot make their own food. That's really important. They cannot make their own food. They are not autotrophs, that word that means making their own food. Fungi cannot. They don't have chlorophyll. They can't capture sunlight. They cannot make their own food. Most obtain their food from parts of plants that are decaying in the soil. Some fungi, some types of mushrooms are delicious. I like them on my pizza, but other fungi can kill you. And our final kingdom is the protist kingdom. And this includes things called slime molds and algae. Those are examples of protists. Sometimes they are called the odds and ends kingdom because its members are so different from one another. Protists include all microscopic organisms that are not bacteria, not plants, and not fungi. Okay, so they're sort of the everything else kingdom. Microscopic. Most protists are unicellular, and if you remember the meaning that we talked about earlier in this article, multicellular means single-celled. And you may be wondering why these protists are not classified in the archaebacteria or the eubacteria. It's because, unlike bacteria, protists are complex cells. Or, we can note, that's not going to work. We can note that protists have a nucleus. Okay, protists have a nucleus. That's what makes them different than the eubacteria and the archaebacteria. Okay, here's your assignment. I want you to imagine that you lived in one of the you were a member of one of the following kingdoms: archaebacteria, eubacteria, fungi, or protists. Okay, you can't be a member of the animal kingdom and you can't be a member of the plant kingdom. So if you could be a living thing in the archaebacteria, eubacteria, fungi, or protist kingdom, which one would you like to be? Would you like to be an archaebacteria, eubacteria, fungi, or protist, and why? And you need to put that, your answer to that question, on your slideshow and turn that in as your assignment for science. All right. Can't wait to see what you guys do.